Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. The Mud Flood Was Armageddon. Tonight, we're talking about blood. Full disclosure, this woman is going to blow your mind. I want you to be aware that I know many of you are going to click off and go to see another video about maybe it's Illuminati has black and white clothes or another square and compass. There is a judgment that is happening right now. It's in play. Tornadoes everywhere. This is what's going on around the world. I typed into the computer, I picked, the Lord said February 4th is the day, and it's going to hit Laurel Canyon, Hollywood Hills, to fulfill the prophecy. The storm is going to hit where Devil's throne is, Satan's throne. Well, since that day, the 4th of February, there's been, they're admitting to 49 tornadoes in Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. I don't think they're counting the 13 that hit on Friday, 4 more on Saturday. Who knows what's happening today? The towns are being tore up. There's this one blob in the middle of the ocean, but don't worry, this guy's convinced, His thing is that somebody says, well, it must be remnants of a tsunami. They're not addressing the blob, but he's saying, well, we have proof it's not a tsunami because these people would have died, so it's not a tsunami. Well, what is it? What was it? It's not enough that, okay, good, it's not a tsunami. This is a judgment. Sulfur. What this town did to the Native Americans is, it's who wants to bet? It's the Griffin Academy, the Griffiths. And they have Griffin as their mascot. This is a judgment. These people's jobs are gone. The governor's going to lose his job, and their insurance are not going to be paid. And the military never lets these type of, they just don't want it to go to waste, No gas, no electricity. What's it going to be like? Look, last month, it was already the tornado outbreak of the decade. And it's just going to keep getting worse. Is that trees that have gone through the windows? What? Looks like the only reason this car's wheel is stuck in the wire. So, it is sad. There's casualties. This town is, they're going like 150 years of history. Right. Stolen history. Doggone it, I wasn't sharing. I'm going to go back over those doggone pictures again. I want to say hello to, I saw Marcella, Vic Noyd, and Remnant Ramblings. You're kind of used to it. But this, honest, her name is Lena Pugh. P-U. Back to the pictures. You got to see these. There's part of your thumbnail. What? Do you have to do it like this? That's the thumbnail. Here's the proof that I asked the computer how many 49 tornadoes they're admitting to. This weekend, there was, another 20. So I don't know where they're coming from. This is that blob that was down on the tip of Africa. Don't worry, it's not a tsunami. Well, what is it? That's the question I was asking. Here's the young man wearing the Academy Griffins. Well, we know now what academies are for. He's the governor of a town of a state that was just destroyed. No jobs, no gas, no electricity. very few deaths, but the military is there to take over because they're not going to let uh, good emergency go to waste. If there's going to be a FEMA, they're going to need new powers because everybody's going broke. How do you live? This is the thing. Last month, 3/31/23, the tornado outbreak of the decade. And it's only going to keep getting worse. Trees, flags sticking out of windows. Sulphur, Oklahoma. This was Native American territory. It's like in the movies. You're not getting that, just like the Baltimore Bridge, Francis Scott Key Bridge. You're not getting that package from Amazon, and you're not getting that mail right now. Right now. So here you go. We're just going to start it off and take notes. Remember, pile on everything I've taught about how, you are a temple of God. You're building up gold, silver, and precious stones, and you're being attacked. I am not a doctor. I don't know if they're doctors. I know that this video is, it's only a couple hours old and it's got 500 views and it's on a very reputable platform. Without further ado,
only FEWE in the classroom, because this is back in 2016. There were no phone cells in the classrooms because the kids were, at that time, were just transitioning into this whole wireless mess. Okay, so 2016, which was only a couple years ago, really. And I had the fortune of meeting with a science teacher who was really interested in what I was sharing with her. So she was willing to be the experimented. Uh, so she offered herself to participate in this blood study. So but before I even go in, let me just go and talk. If you guys are new to understanding wireless, I'm just going to briefly go over the background over all the generations, the uno, dos, tres, cuatro, and cinco
5G.
generations. Okay, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. Because everyone always says, "Oh, it's cinco generation. That's the worst." It's not, or they say the second thing is, "Oh, cinco generation is only the really, really
That
fast
sound okay?
frequencies." That's also not true.
Sounds good to
Okay.
me.
And I need to dispel this, because if you don't understand this, then the rest of my facts are not going to really strike true. And once you understand uh, this part, you'll understand the gravity of what we're being exposed to and why. Okay, so can we flash that electromagnetic? Okay, so this is electromagnetic spectrum. If you guys don't know what part of that spectrum it falls in, it falls in the opposite end of the visible light spectrum, opposite of UV. I'm sorry, opposite of gamma rays. Okay, that's the ionizing rays. I do not call the the microwaves non-ionizing, simply because it is ionizing. Okay, I'm not going to go into the specifics of that and how it does that exactly, but it does create molecular DNA, submolecular breaks. Okay, it does that, but just on a more macro level. So I do not refer ever to the radio frequency microwaves as non-ionizing, because that's a misnomer and that's false. And so, okay, that said, let's go into the generations. I'm sorry, Daryl, do you have a
Yeah,
question?
the distinction you're saying is false between ionizing versus non-ionizing
Correct.
radiation.
Correct.
So why are they using that? Just to lull us into
Yes. Yes.
the
That
notion that, yeah, go ahead.
That's the industry. One of the industry's ploy in getting the scientists all into a huff and arguing a uh, something that really is not should not isn't even a factor. It's also the other thing is that they argue over is it thermal effects or non-thermal effects? What only non-thermal uh, only effects at the thermal level can there be a problem? Can there be a biological problem? Can there be health
Mhm.
issues? But that's also not true. So that argument has been going, both of those arguments, non-ionizing versus ionizing, thermal versus non-thermal, those two, okay, have been the main argument for the last 80 years.
80?
808 decades. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't even go into those arguments with the the industry nor people who tout those that argument that line is that we're way beyond that. We have over tens of thousands of scientific peer-reviewed research that proves that non-thermal levels are harmful. No questions. We don't need more studies either. And we have plenty of studies on the millimeter waves as well. Okay. The millimeter waves has been studied for decades. So we don't need to say, oh, well, the science is out on that. We don't know. We need more studies. We don't need any more studies. Anyways, okay, so
Mhm.
here the chart, I had to create this chart is because to this day, and I put this chart together back in 2019. This is 5 years ago. To this day, there still isn't a proper graph and chart that shows you where Cinco generation and Sete generation sits. Okay, so you see that the Cinco generation is really the entire spectrum of the 3000 or the entire microwave spectrum. And the majority of the frequencies are still within the lower frequencies where the Quattro generation sits. So Cinco really is just more of the Quattro. So that's one of the things I really needed to clarify is that the Sete generation is in the terahertz wave form. However, most of the Cinco generation still resides in the same spectrum that the Quattro generation has been utilizing all this time. There's just more of it. Okay. And then they've increased the power. They've also increased the power level of this. So one of the things I also wanted to share with you is not only is it the entire breadth of the microwave frequencies, is that the power level hasn't been changed. So this is something that most people do not understand is that the power level is set at thermal levels by a Nazi scientist by the name of Herman Schwan, who came after the World War II through Operation Paperclip, which was under the OSS at that time. And he came in 2 years after the war was considered officially over. But what they did was they just smashed the cancer into bits and then spread the cancer all over the world. And so hence we had about 1,600 paperclip officers, intelligence, as well as scientists find its way all over the world. And many of them landed in the United States. In fact,
Mhm.
a lot of them started companies, and a lot of them founded a lot of the United States agencies, and as well as became funded through the universities. And Herman Schwan was one of them. He landed immediately in a high paid job, high level position at UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, as a biomedical specialist. So he was studying radar when he was under the Third Reich. And guess where he's from? He was from Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, which is the Max Planck Institute, which, by the way, he still published studies post war through UPenn connected with Max Planck. I have those studies and I'll share with them in our next talk because I have so much to share right now. But I want to put this out there so you're aware of these
Hmm.
people, the names and the faces and where they're from, because I'm going to only add to this information in our next few talks, and I'm going to build on what I'm sharing today.
So it's
But,
more than Dr. Wende von Braun and the
oh,
sexy Nazis that we are seem to be hung up on,
there's virtually no information on Herman P. Schwan.
and you
If you if
unlocked
you
it.
if you look at Wikipedia, there's only half a page on the
How did
man.
you find out about Dr. Herman Schwan?
It was article within article within article, and I pulled up his name because it was linked to the RF. It was linked to the maximum RF value, and I said, "Who is this man?" And I had to do research within research, to, to find out what he actually did and what the research, what the FCC's value of maximum safety level really was actually started by him. He was the one that founded the original, what the FCC is claiming to be the safety level, 10 million microwatts over meter squared, is based on Herman P. Schwann's declaration back in 1953.
So
Okay.
he's considered the expert in the
Yes,
world.
he is still
Dr.
considered.
Herman Schwan.
Exactly. So today's thermal level FCC maximum safety RF level is based on this Nazi scientist that was pulled out of the Third Reich and plunked into the United States and given our national security over to him for him to decide our safety measure. Our safety level has not changed since
Wow.
1953.
My gosh.
Hello.
How come no historians of science at the university have
He has been
uncovered his
challenged.
name? Why was it you who dug him up? Why is that? You
I'm a
covered
Nancy
it up?
Drew. Okay, I'm just a modern day Nancy Drew, and I love digging deep into research and history. And I'm a science buff. I'm a history buff and a Nazi buff. That all that really gets my juices flowing. And when I want to get down to the bottom of something, I won't stop until I get to the original source. And this is why I like old science. I like old unadulterated science when they're just trying to figure things out, and
Mhm.
they're not going to end the study with more research is needed, because
Yeah.
and yeah, so anyways, back then I felt, depending on who it was, really. I mean, there are
Well,
certain scientists I trust more.
this is where your background, having been born and raised in the South, has come in handy because you're from Knoxville, Tennessee,
Yeah,
and you're a yellow woman living in the South there with a bunch of scientists and engineers who originally from Taiwan. I call them Operation Rice Paperclip
awesome.
to replace the older group, the original Paperclip. And you live close to Alabama. You've been to Alabama, right? Huntsville,
Yes, I
the
have.
Nazi,
My
where the
father's
Nazis were.
Well, my father is an engineer himself, so we would often go to NASA. When we go through Alabama, we would actually go on a trip to visit the NASA operation in Huntsville, Alabama. And
Oh my gosh.
right. And back then it was in the middle of nowhere. You would drive, drive, drive. It's just land of nothing. There was nothing there. And then it was just a weird, it was, to me, it was so odd to have NASA in Alabama, because I was born and raised in the South. I just felt it was really out of place. But that's precisely why they wanted to put it there, because it was safe,
Uh-huh.
it was out of prying eyes, and there were no residential areas around it for miles. So, and also, there's a lot of other intelligent operating places that I was connected to indirectly, because all the kids I grew up with, that were Chinese, born of Taiwanese immigrants, of parents who are PhD scientists. Many of them either worked as engineers for where my father worked at the Tennessee Valley Authority, which they were working on watershed projects as well as nuclear projects. But the other half of my friends, their parents worked directly for Oak Ridge, Oak Ridge, which also has their own linear accelerator, linear particle accelerator. They have their own little mini version of the CERN. Okay,
Mhm.
and this is something I found out a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh my goodness, wow, that was Oak Ridge. The Oak Ridge is right next to my hometown that I grew up in.
Mm.
Yeah, so we were the Rice Paperclip. We were the second generation of the intelligence that fed in and continued the Nazi science that was being
Wow.
pushed through by the original wave of the Nazi uh, world.
Incredible.
Yeah, this is what I mean. The cancer got smashed and it
Mm.
spread, but the cancer got kept growing by fueling it with the energies of the intelligence of people out of the country who have no clue what the real end product was. So part of the Manhattan Project was developed in all these separate places. Oak Ridge was one of them. We have places in Colorado and that Rocky Flats. There were several plutonium bombs, or not bombs. I'm sorry. Well, actually, it was. It was a plutonium fire that went off twice in their laboratories. And of course, it's next to Denver. Nobody ever told Denver people that we had a plutonium fire, and all those people ended up developing cancers immediately, really quickly downstream, like within years, a few years. In fact, the cattle started having strange cancers and growths, and it was a horrible. If anybody is interested in looking that up, it's Rocky Flats, Colorado, uh, near Denver, and that they were responsible for making the plutonium plugs. So they had a lot of dark history. Their water, they didn't filter their water, of course. They buried all the radioactive substances in the ground, and to this day, they don't. I don't know if they're letting people onto the site, but it's still contaminated. It will forever be contaminated. Um, yeah. So
Rocky Flats. I didn't mean to get you off onto the autobiographical elements, but I think it's intrinsic to the story. So why don't you continue with your presentation?
Oh, okay. So Herman P. Schwan lived a very long time. He came to the United States in 1947 and immediately became a professor and started grooming his future protege. And his name is Kenneth Foster. And what is really interesting is that when I released my Silicon Valley Health Institute video, which described what I'm describing to you now in back in 2019, I had this gentleman who is now a friend of mine come to me, said, if it wasn't for your talk and mentioning how Kenneth Foster is connected to Herman P. Schwan, the Nazi scientist, I would never have put two and two together in why Kenneth Foster, who visited his school, his children's school, deny that any level of EMFs, the radio frequency wireless, was harmful. He was
Mm.
denying all of this. And
Mhm.
he had written letters to the school saying that there is no chance that there could be any harm because the FCC levels were considered safe. And this is from Kenneth Foster. So so this is why it's good to have these videos out, is because when people are trying to fight this beast tech system, you can connect the dots and understand that there is a history behind what it is that we're fighting. The better you understand the history, the more powerful you are with your presentation, because you're not going to be falling prey to their argument. Okay, that's the thing, is they want to keep you in the wheelhouse of their argument that they create, which is non-thermal versus thermal, ionizing versus non-ionizing. I mean, that's all total BS. It's
Mhm.
almost like saying the entire light spectrum, the UV versus the red light, infrared, they're all the same. Every single one of these frequencies of the visible light is the same when we know it doesn't. Every single light spectrum solicits a specific effect, and we see this in plants and animals.
Mhm.
So that's the same thing with the microwave spectrum.
Well,
Same thing
currently
with
we're.
the,
I'm sorry
yeah.
to interrupt you. Currently,
Oh,
we have this one guy who will remain anonymous. He bills himself as a martyr to civil liberties, but he also claims to be an evolutionary biologist. But he's going around getting people chasing their tail ad infinitum over the science. That's ironic that they use science in order to keep people in this spin cycle.
that's why I go into policy. You
Okay.
go into the structure of the government. The structure of the government is already de facto. We are operating under a de facto government, and this is
Mhm.
why I went after their oath of office, because I knew none of them had signed and autographed
I told you that we were de facto.
their oath of office. I knew this back in 2020 because I had my international group, my private group that I was serving the notice of liability to the FCC and all the other people. We actually had asked for a Freedom of Information Act on the FCC as well as the FDA, WHO, and NIH, and we have actually all of their oaths of office, that the highest level, quote unquote, whoever they are, leaders. We have their oaths of office. It's all a farce. So when you just go after that, then you're actually taking the legs and the rug out from under the agency. You want to take the authority away from the agency. That's the foundation of our problem. The science is really just this really the furthest reaching problem you should be addressing.
Mhm.
Same thing with all the other arguments, like what happened during the plan scam of 2020, right?
Yes.
Everyone got really hung up over the science, but I was telling people, no, don't even go there, because they have broken their allegiance on the very basic premises of
Mhm.
action. Has nothing even to do with the thing, the
Yeah.
product. You need to
Mhm.
go after the person more than the
Right.
product, right? The product is a downstream issue.
Mhm.
And actually, the further you go downstream, the harder it is for you to actually make a claim, because then you got to prove all these other things, right? If you try to prove harm, causative harm, it gets really tricky, because then they can say, well, we don't know exactly if it's this or that. So once you realize that no, the agency had no leadership, it had no authority to begin with, whoa, that's a different argument there.
Mhm.
So it means that everything they've done moving forward has been a farce.
Wow.
All
Kind of like
along.
9/11. They've done some fine work, don't get me wrong, but engineers for 9/11 truth, right? They
Mhm.
just got everybody in that spin cycle of, oh, let's look at the forensic science, on and on and on. And we have the same situation with children's health. What is it called? Children's health
A defense.
defense
City.
fund. You know, let's argue the science until we don't even remember what we're arguing about. You're going to the core of the problem
That's all in
because
the
you're
NOL.
about solutions here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why Ajit Pai stepped down. When we started serving him a flood of notice of liability, this is back in 2020.
Mhm.
We gave enough notice of liability, and these were served by single people all over the world. I had a person from Hong Kong serve the FCC, and you're probably wondering, okay, the audience is probably wondering now, how could that happen? Well, because my Nancy Drew in me found out that the FCC is actually international. They're internationally connected. They have international control over all of the radio frequency products and the
The
emissions.
Federal Communicate
The
the United
Federal
States.
Communications Commission, FCC.
Right.
The United States FCC is actually international.
Yeah.
Okay, so all the other nations, their version of their uh, communi- what they call, I hate this word, regulatory agencies, still has to have follow what is called I believe it's a TCB, telecommunications body, which is governed by the FCC. That's how they do it, is that they govern an international body that all the other uh, nations have to obey and fall under. It's like a mini United Nations version of the telecommunications system. Okay, so that's how they work with the communications world. That's how they do it with the pharmaceutical slash uh, medical world. Same system, same structure,
Mhm.
nation worldwide. And that's how I was able to transfer my knowledge of the system within the world networking of how the telecommunications work to the pharmaceutical system. And that's how I was able to draft the notice of liability for that part of the scam during
Mhm.
2020 so quickly, was because I already knew exactly what to look for. Already knew how to broach the matter, and it wasn't about the science. Okay, so
Mhm.
half of it actually, now people need to understand, what is the truth. The truth isn't just knowing the dark side. Oh, you know, just because you know what they're doing, the evil that they're doing, that's not the truth. What is the real truth? That's the part that people are missing. That the truth is in the Bible.
Mhm.
The truth is in the Ten Commandments. The truth is in the covenant that God had given us through Christ, and that is secured in the symbol of the rainbow, which has been stolen by the Kabbalistic Satanists. Luciferian has turned the rainbow into his symbol, which he will never be able to do. And you know why he does that? Because he's making a mockery of God's covenant for mankind.
Mhm.
Understand that. We have a covenant of God. That's the truth. All right. So once you
Now,
understand,
now, I don't know if Dr. Hamamoto is a Buddhist or not, but I'm pretty sure he's not a Christian, but he knows all the arguments. But if he's not called, he's not called. To me, he's kind of like what Paul was exasperated with. What king was that? Festus, or where he said, "Oh, king, I wish that you would go all the way and accept the Lord." And he's going, "You're crazy, man. All your studying is making you mad." He goes, "I know you've studied this scripture because these things haven't happened in a corner," which is why, he knows her argument. He knows he's not going to be able to stop her from saying this.
that people are missing, that the truth is in the Bible.
Mhm.
The truth is in the Ten Commandments. The truth is in the covenant that God had given us through Christ, and that is secured in the symbol of the rainbow, which has been stolen by the Kabbalistic Satanists. Luciferian has turned the rainbow into his symbol, which he will never be able to do. And you know why he does that? Because he's making a mockery of God's covenant for mankind. Understand that. We have a covenant of God. That's the truth. All right.
He's witnessing to
So once you
Dr.
understand that truth,
Hamamoto.
and that truth was plunked into the notice of liability. So
That's the
half
way to
my
And
do
notice of
it.
liability,
is
yeah,
this why these characters evade taking the oath of office?
yes, because they
Because
still
it's that
have to obey the truth. And why do
right.
they put their hand over the Bible? Because they still understand who rules this universe. They
Mhm.
still have to pledge an indirect acknowledgement. And this is
Mhm.
why they have to tell what they're doing to us, because they have certain rules that they
Mhm.
need to follow.
And this is why Barack Hussein Obama blew the presidential oath of office and supposedly had to do it in secret,
Yes.
right? And then years
And
later,
Kamala
we have
Harris.
Kamala Harris of
Yeah.
Kappa Pi Pi, secret society of the boule of
Hmm.
the black bourgeoisie control system, who took the oath of office with her hand on her. Either it was her pocketbook or it was a missile.
It was I think a different Bible. It was a book, probably
The
Masonic
Satanic
book.
Bible?
It's probably a Masonic book. I don't know.
Okay.
Probably. I
There are
wouldn't be
photos of that.
surprised.
If
Yeah,
people want the receipts, look on TubeView and you'll see her taking the phony oath of office.
that's right. And actually, what's really interesting is that when when my group and I were getting all the oaths of office for certain state governors, the one in Illinois, total globalist, complete globalist family, Prisker, didn't even
Ooh.
use his full name. He did sign, but he used initials. So that automatically negates the autograph, because you're known as your full name. You're not, if you change and adulterate even one letter of your name, that's not you. Legally,
Hmm.
in a court of law, you have to give your full name correctly spelled. So when you use initials, that's an incorrect spelling of your name. And so
I
that was
see.
a direct slap also to the public face, like, hey, I'm going to sign this oath of office, but I'm just going to give you a fake name and see if you do anything about it, right? So this is how they get away, by knowing that they're going to commit crimes against mankind by doing these things that are in our
Mhm.
faces.
Well, that Pritzker name is a curse upon my lips because they expropriated my people, the Americans of Japanese ancestry, confiscating their hotels and restaurants during World War II. And that became the foundation of the Pritzker hospitality industry. And they have this architectural prize named after their Luciferian selves. And they have the little Pritzker globe in Chicago there. That's the Pritzker family.
They are
And
so evil. I know.
yeah,
Wow.
and then isn't one of them the secretary of transvestitism or something?
They're very heavily politically active. Yes, very very high level. One is, and the other one, the governor of Illinois, actually has huge numbers of stock in the PCR test.
Mm,
Yeah, they own a huge share of the PCR test, or one of them. And
mhm.
so you can see the huge conflict of interest there.
And the Pritzker family have extensive holdings in transsexual pharmaceuticals, I believe.
Mm,
Big
I'm
investments
not
there.
surprised. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
All
because
right, keep spilling the tea, Mama.
yeah.
Keep spilling it.
All right.
All
Um,
right.
okay, let me see. Okay, so how did Herman Schwan continue his push? Well, he was challenged. He was challenged by B, uh, Robert Becker, and he was a scientist. And I will bring up his name too because his research was very interesting. He researched salamanders, as well as healing of a broken bone using electrotherapy. So he was extremely aware of the powerful effects that radio frequencies would have on biology of any living organism. So he stepped in and he challenged Herman Schwan's claims, and but of course it was all rigged because Herman Schwan actually vehemently, adamantly, forcefully maintained that no, it is only thermal levels that can only solicit effects.
Mhm.
However, I'm going to show you something that I pulled from his research, his scientific research way back when, that proves otherwise. And I will show you, actually I could show you right now. So let me show you what I've done in school. Was I had the teacher wear a dosimeter to make sure that her blood effects was the result of EMF exposure. So this is actually a copy of my blood. I took this image just to show you what healthy blood looks like, and I um, honestly have very hard time finding people with good looking blood, and I had to use my own because it was one of the few. So I eat healthy. I drink good water, and most importantly, I don't microwave my food. And even more importantly, I stay away from all kinds of EMFs. All my electronics are hardwired. I don't even use a cell phone. I have a flip phone that I use for emergencies, but that's 10 years old and it has a battery that I can remove. Okay. I'm even upset that I even have that. But anyway, so this is my blood. This is what healthy blood looks like. It's separated and it's singular, very consistent texture. So that's this. Okay. Um, so can we look at the slide? Okay, so this is me. I actually deliberately exposed myself to Wi-Fi, or sorry, FeeWee, and because this is TubeView. Um, so the blood underneath is me after ambient my house, just having my house. And this was back in 2016. So the ambient level of the Fiwi in my house was enough to put my blood into Rouleau. Okay. And that doesn't look good, does it? And when I first started seeing this, I said, wow, my blood can become Rouleau so quickly after just a few minutes, 45 minutes, my blood started to stack together and form these chain, okay, which is the Rouleau. All right, so let's look at the actually let's look at the slides, 2 slides before. Yeah, that one. Okay, perfect. So the everyone who uh, who wants to challenge you and say, well, there's cosmic radiation and you're exposed to that. Well, I'm sorry, folks. Cosmic radiation levels is next to nothing, and that's on the left side versus um, Fiwi in school on the right is all that purple. There's other colors mixed in. So there's green, there's blue, and there's red. Those are from, I believe, is from the kid's phone cell, as well as I believe maybe the smart meter and ambient. But as you can see, most of the color's purple. That purple designates the Fiwi. So that is the main exposure that the kids were getting. And that level, if you understand numbers, that is at average is 8,000 microwatts over meter squared. And you're going to understand the significance of these numbers when I go in further into my talk. Okay, so just remember this: 8,000 microwatts over meter squared. That's average. That's like the midpoint, the most common frequency exposure that you see in the purple squiggles. Okay, so that's what the teacher was being exposed to. That's what all the kids were being exposed to. And this was back in 2016. And this is the first year that classroom deployed its own personal industrial strength Fiwi. And they put one in every single classroom. And I measured it.
What are these? You mean routers?
Yes. Yeah.
Routers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Routers or WAPs, WAP, wireless access points.
Okay.
So wireless access point is what they refer to in school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So this is back in 2016. By now, believe me, it's everything, and plus the squiggle lines are in every color is going to be massive. So I used dosimeter. So the teacher wore a dosimeter that entire day, and she wore it on her arm, and it picks up all the frequencies, and you download it at the end of the day into the computer, and the computer reads out like this. So this is a whole day's worth of what she was being exposed to. Okay, so let's scroll down to the teacher's blood, and I'll show you what. Okay, wait. Oh, too fast. Okay, that one. Oh, so I actually took the teacher's blood 4 times. 3 times was control, and I took her blood the day before she was going to be exposed to the school classroom, and I did it morning and the afternoon, as if she was going to school. Okay, but this is when she was at home. So her blood was pretty good looking. It's separated and they're pretty round for the most part. There's not much damage. There's hardly any damage really to her cells. So this is actually pretty good looking cells. And I did this for 3 times. I did this 3 times, and they were all look consistent like this. Okay. However, on the day that she was exposed to the Fiwi, by the end of the one day on Monday, well, actually it was a long weekend, so I think it was on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, we did the blood analysis. After school, I immediately had to go into my RV where I had all the microscope set up. I had a hard time drawing her blood, by the way. Her blood would not come out of her finger. So this is what her blood looked like. Can we flash the next photo? It was completely coagulated. I did not add any color. Her blood was stacked so high that you can actually see pigment. And I've never seen this before, where there was so much blood stacked together. This is beyond Rouleau. This is a coagulation. This is complete coagulation. And in fact, later on, she would tell me that she was getting headaches. She's not one to get headaches because she eats organic. She's very healthy. She's thin. She's fit. She exercises. She bikes everywhere. She uses no electronics. She doesn't even have a cell phone at that time. This is back in 2016. That's why I picked her. She also doesn't use Fiwi at home. So she was a perfect subject. And look at this, her blood. That's an assault, folks. It looks like flesh. Her blood is so coagulated, it looked like flesh. And plus, the blood, when it came out as a drop, was not red. It was brown in color. So basically, Fiwi in schools is cooking people inside out. Okay, can we flash the next photo or slide? Okay, so this is her blood before that morning at 8 a.m. And then on the right is her blood at 3 p.m. And we're talking about 7 hours of exposure. And it looks like that. The good news is that she was repeatedly exposed to the Fiwi for already enough time that one good thing is that because her home was clean, was radio frequency clean, she was able to detox that. Okay. She was able to bring back her cells into a homeostasis situation where she could get back to normal. Because if you see her blood on the left.
How long did it take for her to detox?
Well, I figure every weekend she does. Because,
every weekend.
Yeah,
okay.
Because the blood on the left means that her blood the blood was able to unstack itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because this wasn't the only time she was exposed to the same level of Fiwi in her classroom. Remember, this was the first year that the school deployed this, so it took me a couple of months for me to be able to figure out how to do this and do this right and do this well, so that the blood is taken in a perfect setting without any tampering. So 3 days. So she had 3 days of rest. So her blood was able to unstack itself, right? Because that's the blood on the left. Because otherwise she would be getting coagulated blood every single day, go home, rest, and then her blood will unstack, right? And then go get exposed again, and the blood will stack up again. Let me tell you, the stacking happens immediately because we're talking about positive and negatives. That's what radio frequency electromagnetic radiation is. It's a waveform that's depending on the speed, the frequency of it, it's penetrating your system, and it's attacking your charge, and amongst everything else. I mean, but one of the main things is it's changing the charge of your blood, and that's how your microwave ovens work. It works on a dielectric process where it makes your cells spin, because your cells wants to align its polar positives and negatives to the oscillating waveforms of the frequencies. And the microwave radiation frequencies, because it penetrates, that's why I felt, well, blood is a perfect specimen to see immediate effects. Is radio frequency having a biological effect on the cellular level? Well, what do you think? I'm not going to answer that. The pictures says it all. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, let's go back to Herman P. Schwan. Remember that I was saying that I pulled up some of his old articles and scientific research. Well, this is an image from one of his old research that actually shows that he knew about the coagulating effects of blood cells in general, because of the dielectric properties of the cells.
Say that again.
I'm looking for that one thing. Now, here, remember I was getting the Samoan cooking things? How could I've made 4 videos today. How could I have watched all these videos about American football now? I had not watched any of these videos. Now I want to show you I did watch the weather videos. I've been looking for a man who does live blood because I want you to see it when it crawls around. And now, doggone it, I am wasting your time, wasting my time. But my goal was for you to be able to see this blood, and that's why his name is Life Scope Muscophacy or something. I know I watched it. Live blood. I'll find it some other night.
Because he understands the dielectric properties of the cells. So here he has an image, and this is what I'm showing you right now, is that on the right, it shows without field. You see, like I was showing you, the red blood cells without the field, without the radio frequency microwave radiation, is that they're all singular and separated. They're just free-flowing. But then as soon as you introduce the field, and especially the radio frequency microwave fields, then they start aligning to the field and they start stacking up, just like how he shows it in very, very simple terms in these little hand-drawn circles, without field versus with field. You see that stacking? You see that stacking? That's rouleau. If it's blood.
That's from Dr. Herman Schwan.
Yes, Dr. Schwan.
Is that from one of his monographs?
It's from one of his scientific studies. Yeah.
So this is from Schwan himself.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And he calls it pearl chain formation, which is, there's a lot of different terms that is used. We call it rouleau these days because that's what we use these days. But you can call it pearl chain if you want. Same thing, same function, same effects. So what he's also showing, if you look at orientation, principles of interaction of microwave fields, is that not only does it do the pearl chain formation, but it also causes it to orient itself however the frequency is. So I always tell people, field first, then physical. That's like somatics. If you guys understand the principles of somatics, that is how we're all organized. That is why sound therapy works. That's why I'm into sound healing. And I've been on this track for the last couple of years, and I'm about to launch my tuning forks because I'm finding that is the #1 healing tool for me and many others, that I can testify that it is one of the most important tools that we need to bring back is resonance, because all of this is dissonance. All of this is chaotic. It's creating us to our cells and our DNA and our flesh, everything, and our spirit. Okay, I'm going to get into the spiritual part. It's making us align to their construct, their system, their non-light source. If you look at all the things that the cabal, the Luciferian agendas use, they are everything but light. That is what electricity is. Whether it's on a wire or wireless, it is devoid of light. Why do you think that is? Why do you think AI is devoid of light? Okay, so your whole physical being is oriented by your frequencies. Frequency, or actually field. Your field is what keeps you together. And that's what Robert Becker was working on when he was working on the salamanders, is that he realized that the salamander had a field where the amputation was, and the field still had the aura of the shape of the limb of the animal. And so that's why the salamander was able to still grow that hand in that limb in the same way. was because it wasn't the physical part. It was just exercising the field. It was just reproducing the physical part to reflect the field. So feel first, then physical. Yeah, that's just my general rule of thumb. So okay, so back to Herman P. Schwan. He knows, and he knew. So this was a study done, I believe, I can't remember, in the 80s, 1977. There it is. So this is a study he did in 1977. So he knew, and he remained involved in the FCC through the IEEE as well as ANSI, which are all the regulatory. Well, I'm sorry, they supplement their research to the FCC. So the FCC relies on all the engineering data on these two main bodies of, or they're really independent organizations called IEEE and the ANSI. IEEE is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and ANSI is the American National Standards Institute. And it's not just America, okay? American national, that's total BS too. That's baloney. That's actually international. They actually govern the international standards. Again, another title, a mistitled organization. So anyway, so Herman P. Schwan was very involved in these two institutes because they are the ones who enforced and retained the FCC levels of the 10 million microwatts over meter squared level. And Herman P. Schwan lived till he was about almost 90. He was 89 when he passed away, and that was as recent as 2005. So you can see how he has really been the gatekeeper in enforcing that the entire United States quote unquote safety levels have remained governed under his rule of thumb all this time.
He's a figure that in many ways is more important to the fate of the world than Dr. Werner von Braun.
Because it's so insidious. Yes, because
Mhm.
nuclear fallout is devastating and it's an immediate effect. You can measure it and it's terrible. But when you blast microwave radiation and you withdraw it, it's like a DEW. The effects are seen, but the environment's not toxic anymore. It doesn't remain toxic. So it's actually it's the most stealth, and really by reason of stealth, that's why they focus so much attention on the microwave spectrum, not so much on the nuclear, right? But more
Mhm.
on the microwave because they can solicit an endless plethora of effects. They can solicit mind control, MK Ultra, Monarch. They can solicit the tech, nano effects. They combine it with chemical, biological, synthetic, biosynthetic, all kinds of things because they can use it to transfect. And then they can also cause these artificial DNAs to open up and overload their payload of whatever it is that is in them. It could be anything. And we're finding polymers, we're finding nanobots, we're finding self-replicating, all kinds of things. And it really is an endless plethora of a concoction, a witch's brew of whatever it is that they want to put together. It's like frog's eyes, lizard tail, bubbling green brew of all kinds of things from the microbes all the way to macro things that they throw together and they put it into this vial of things and then they poke you with it. Yeah. So, and then it's enhanced, okay? It's enhanced through the microwaves because they penetrate. So is it it's a binary weapon, trinary weapon. It's a multi multiplying type weapon, to put it lightly, because there's many layers to it, many layers. because you send a certain frequency, it solicits a certain response, and then another different type of frequency, and it does something else, and then another frequency, and it sends information, and it teaches, and it coaches, and it orients it. It can do what it wants to do on a micro, sub-micro to a macro level. And for instance, it can control emotions, it can control thought patterns. In fact, they've done monkey experiments where they put they made monkeys run a certain way and hop and skip and do exactly what they wanted it to do, just to prove to themselves that they've got this down pat. They figured it out. And they have. And so here we are today. And this is why it's so important for me to share what I've done again, because TubeU took my Silicon Valley video down. And I do think it is important for me for all of us to revisit this, because there's another twist to the new technology that I want to bring up, and that's Airpods. Okay, so I'm going to connect everything that I'm sharing with you right now, right here, with Airpods, because we're seeing a massive numbers of people, and I can't tell you how many people I'm walking. Half of them have Airpods in their blazing microwaving their brains with these AirPods in their stuck in both of their ears now. Before it used to be Bluetooth, which is just one in one ear, but now it's two radiating and radiating antennas in both sides of their head. And I also want to tell you that there's something else that's really interesting, because we're talking about how the FCC has been pulling the wool over our eyes and keeping us down with not changing the FCC levels. Is that one of the things is about the cell phone industry, is that the EHT has actually done something good. Okay, they had gone and asked for Freedom of Information Act on the FCC, asking for safety measures for certain phones, and one of them was the iPhone, and I believe certain brands of Samsung and a few other brands, and their safety levels exceeded what was standard. And you know that the standard is already way too high, but those phones exceeded the standard, but they're still on the market. So the reason why I want to bring this up is that if these phones are exceeding the limits and there's only one phone, what do you think these two AirPods are doing on both sides of your head? And I measured them. Each AirPod is the same level as what a phone emits. It's the same level. It looks tiny. Those little AirPods, they're tiny, right? They look innocuous. They actually look like little aliens. And then you put two on either side of your head, you are essentially putting two cell phones on either side of your head. Let that sink in. Okay, Daryl, can we move to the next image? Okay, this is, that's mine. So this is an image of two circles overlapping, and as you can see, it's pretty simple. And in the center is the Vesica Pisces, and that's the eye, right? So that's where it overlaps. This is actually a symbol of
Vesica
really
Pisces.
sacred symbol.
Vesica Pisces.
When you're looking at these concentric circles, you create what is, can you move to the next slide? Things like the flower of life.
Oh, okay. Here
the
we
seed
go.
of life, right? And it's also a sacred image that even the religious people use. As you can see on the left, there's a lot of actual physical references to the Vesica Pisces. I won't go into all of them, but it's sacred. It's sacred geometry. And let's move to the next slide. And then what do you think two AirPods are doing? on either side of your head. Okay. So each one is generating 100,000 microwatts of power, almost nearly 100% of it going straight into the brain. Okay. And the older Bluetooth model, by the way, is only 3 to 5,000 not only.
I hope she mentions this. Is that the I love you sign? I think that's the hook 'em horn sign, and the I love you is just the thumb and the pinky. So I'm pretty sure that's not the Hawaiian. Well, what's up, mutual love?
Okay, none of this is safe, really. 3 to 5,000 microwatts over meter squared. But what caused that teacher's blood to rouleau? Do you remember? You remember that number?
No, sorry.
8,000 microwatts. And each AirPod generates 100,000. Each one. And you have 2 of them on either side of the head. This is why this needs to go out to every single man and woman and child on this planet. Because there has not been any safety done on 2 cell phones against the head, let alone 1. Remember, I talked to you about how the FCC is now, there's a potential lawsuit that many of these name brand, well-known phone companies have exceeded their limits, their safety limits. And you know that the safety limits are already too high, and they're exceeding them. And those levels are the same as an AirPod. Just to give you a frame of reference, I always refer to the Bioinitiative report for safety. Like they provide actually very reasonable levels of exposure, and their level of exposure where you can still get FeeWee, you still get your wireless connection and be able to make a phone call, make a, whatever it is that you want to do things wirelessly, text and talk. Maybe you might not be able to download all your cat videos, but at least you'll be able to make a call, right? And that's at 3 to 10 microwatts over meter squared. That's all you need. That's all we need in the city. So folks, if you are fighting this in your town, which I applaud, because I know there are a lot of people who are doing this, and you guys are my friends and I know who you are, and awesome to you guys. Refer to the Bioinitiative report, because they have safety limits that is reasonable, and you can still maintain connectivity. So I'm not saying that, yeah, let's tear, get rid of everything. I would actually, I think we really do need to do that. However, but to be
What's the name of
reasonable,
that report again?
Bioinitiative report, and I believe
Okay.
it's 2012. See, it's that old, 2012. So there's been scientists on this track for decades. And it's been a long time coming. We really need to move on this. I mean, this is ridiculous that we're still arguing about stupid things, the same old. It's really just, it's beyond frustrating. Okay, so let's move to the next photo, the one after this one. Okay, so here you go. You got two electromagnetic radiation fields that are contradicting each other on both ends or both sides, overlapping each other, right? So you're creating several vesicopieces, overlapping fields, but where do you think the highest level is going to be? Okay, the highest level is going to be in the center. Okay, let's move to the next photo. And I hate to show you this. I drew this with limited knowledge of I don't have an art program. It really should be radiating into the head instead of circles, but because I don't have the capability or know how to doing that, but you get the idea. It's just opposing radiation fields that are going against each other. So you see multiple the psychopieces in the center, right? So basically what I really wanted to illustrate with that image is that the most overlapping radiation is happening in the center of the brain, Not to mention that the whole brain is irradiated. But the center of the brain. Now, where's the center of the brain? What we all know where the center of the brain is. It holds the pineal gland. It's opening up portals. Okay, when you have opposing radiation fields that are going in opposite directions like that, and you're creating the psychopisis, the psychopisis is creating a portal. You're opening up different dimensions. Time, you're warping time. You're not just, whenever the magnetic field is warped like that, you're warping time as well. So that's not only the pineal gland, but I also want to mention something that, Daryl, you would really appreciate, is what was brought to my attention was when I befriended PhD, MD scientist who is someone I esteem to no end is Dr. Gunnar Heuser, and you met him with me. And he is the man who also did one of the few what is it, live studies on humans, on human subjects, radiation effects on human subjects. He actually did brain scans of the firefighters back in, I believe, as early as 1990s, showing that dose generation, okay, 2, just the level 2, is enough to have caused brain cancer. This was only the second generation. There was a tower that was put on top of the fire station, and then all the firefighters became so ill and such severe brain fog that they actually would get lost driving home. So these are the fittest of the fittest who get rigorously tested mentally as well as physically, were losing it. They were losing it mentally as well as physically too. They were feeling ill, like they couldn't, they all of them. So they were willing to participate in the study that Dr. Gunnar Heuser was involved in, and he showed that every single one of them had abnormal brains. Okay, so this doctor, my beloved friend, I believe he's passed away now. What?
You have a copy of that study by Dr. Heuser?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But what's what's really cute about him is that when we were meeting, he was, I believe he was 91. He already suffered 2 heart attacks, and yet he wanted to do a study with me. And he just had the most curious mind and the most loving heart, and just wouldn't stop. His love of mankind just.
Mhm.
Yeah.
His is a name that should be memorialized, Dr. Gunnar Heuser,
Oh, definitely.
who was born and raised
Yeah.
in Germany and trained in Germany, I believe.
Yeah. So actually, that's a really good counter to the German Herman Schwan, would be someone like Dr. Gunnar Heuser, who is the opposite of these people who do such evil. Dr. Gunnar Heuser wanted to, well, he wanted to work on a brain study on the effects EMFs would have specifically on the amygdala. And so I've actually done, since then, I've been doing some research here and there when I have the time, just studying the amygdala. And what I've realized is that this is really important, is that the amygdala are 2 almond-shaped part of the brain that sits in the cerebellum, really close to the pineal gland on both sides. Okay, so this is 2 parts of the brain that's on either side. But what's really interesting is that why is there 2 of them? Well, they are the processing center that takes in all the information before it sends it to the rest of the brain. And this is where memory is made, created, as well as your emotion, and how you process your emotion. It all starts with the amygdala. And he says that the amygdala, he suspected, is what's causing a lot of the PTSD and all the, well, he didn't say PTSD. That's what I've been reading. But he's saying that that is what's calling the anomalous behaviors that is coming from the children that are reacting violently, anxiety's gone through the roof, um, a lot of ADHD, all the attention deficit disorders, all kinds of weird behavioral problems are all stemming from the exposures to all this artificial. I don't even say man-made. It's alien waveforms. These are alien waveforms. Earth doesn't generate any part of it. They're pulsed. They're none of it gives life. Not a single one of them give life. Okay, light gives life. All right. And anyways, so Dr. Gunnar Heuser was talking about this amygdala being so central as a missing part of figuring out the behavioral problems. And so I'm telling you guys the amygdala, if you want to know where it resides if you take cross section between your eye and your ear, that's where each of your amygdala lies. It's right where your ears are and your eyes. So what are your AirPods doing? It's hitting your amygdala first. Well, besides your nervous system and your entire brain, really, but it's attacking your amygdala, okay, directly through the nervous system. I don't know how long people are going to be able to last having these devices in their heads. There's so many other profound effects that I will just list briefly because I realize we've already gone over time. But besides the brain structure, you're breaking down the blood-brain barrier, okay? And when you do that, all the toxins that is flooding in your body, and we know what they are if you are punctured with certain things, is that if that thing is floating in your bloodstream, that's going straight into your brain, okay? And then also your skull is a crystal, so it's creating piezo electric effects, and it's actually expanding and your head becomes the antenna because of the ability of the skull acting as a crystalline structure. You also have magnetite, which is iron oxides that connects you to the magnetic field of the earth. That is also being impacted. That is how we orient ourselves. That is why birds have such high levels of magnetite in their skull. That's why they can navigate so well. That's why certain animals can navigate so well, is because of the magnetite in the brain. So these, and also let's talk about the cellular effects. The DNA is an antenna. What is it doing to the DNA within the brain? What is it doing to the brain cells themselves, as well as the nervous system? There's electroporation going on. Electroporation meaning it's puncturing pores, it's opening up holes in the cells, and so now the cells are leaky. That's complete mayhem. And let's talk about the spiritual level. You're following the rhythm of this alien technology. You are no longer connected to not only yourself, but you're no longer connected to God. You're not connected to God's field. You're not connected to mankind's field. You're not connecting to each other. When you see how big and extensive your personal field is, I believe you can finally appreciate that we actually have the powers through our conscious intentions that we mold the earth and actually the universe in a very, very powerful way. And I'm not saying all of these things to necessarily frighten you that into inaction. Quite the opposite. And I'm sharing this is because we have that power. Why do you think they're trying to stick these things in our ears, and they're extracting our consciousness? More than just I don't even want to focus on the possibility of cancer. That's way beyond them wanting to destroy us with cancers. It's they're extracting our consciousness. They're spirits. These evil spirits need bodies, and they're using our bodies to fulfill their goal of whatever agenda it is by planting their spirit into us and through us. And they do this through the Airpods. They do this through our phone cells. They do this through the Fiwi, which is essentially all connected from more the specifics to the more larger structures that will then flow into the cell towers, that flows into the satellites, that goes to these base, whatever it is that is the central hub. So it's way more than just data collecting. Okay, it's way more. That's almost not even really an issue I even ever talk about. I don't even ever talk about data collecting. That's like pennies to them. They want your consciousness. They want your soul. Okay, they want your spirit. And that's what I'm saying is that the opposite of what these AirPods and cell phones are really doing is that we need to be conscious of what it is that we're agreeing with. What is it that we're contracting with? When you open up your phone, do you have to give them your fingerprint? You just gave them your personal contract. You've connected with them at a visceral level. Your very imprint. And then when you put these things in your head, it's taking over. It's taking over your thought patterns, your essence. And be mindful of these things, because the opposite is what is real. Okay. What I've shared with you is only part of the truth. It's only actually not even the real truth. The real truth is that we have such powerful connective abilities that God has given us. Okay. That's a wonderful picture to show. Okay, so this is Michelangelo's destroyed photo of this image I actually took from a movie, because I always look at movies now as instruction. This is what they're going to do, and I'm looking for certain things, and I've been looking for AirPods and brain, because it's such this phenomenon that everybody's now using it. It just boggles my mind how anyone would ever want to even do that to their brain and think that it's okay. So I actually found this image in Don't Look Up, the movie, and it has nothing to do with the real problem, which is a meteorite or something like that was going to hit Earth and going to destroy Earth and all inhabitants forever. Don't Look Up really means that everyone is looking down on their phones. That's really what it means. Like, we're just completely oblivious. So here we go. This is actually a scene where everyone's in a movie theater listening to a talk given by one of the quote unquote globalists within the movie, which is really interesting, because it's a movie. It's a globalist movie about a globalist.
Isn't this the one that
engagement.
stars Sandra Bullock?
No. That's
Bird Nest. That's Bird
Bird
Nest.
Box. That one's
Bird
Bird Box. This one is
Okay.
actually a funny one. This one is an allegory of the United States government and how it will deal with a world crisis issue if something were to really happen. How were they going to react to this? And the whole thing is just a total farce. It's an allegory. It's actually a really funny, well done movie. But this image really struck me because And you'll see in a minute. Okay, so here we have God supposedly touching Adam, right? Giving Adam the spark of life, and the two fingers are supposed to be touching or about to touch. And yet in this movie, they converted it and they showed, oh yeah, he's passing him a phone. However, I realized that when I revisited this image, it's not just a phone. Can we flash to the next scene? Okay. So he passed Adam, the first man, a phone. So instead of giving him life, he gives him a phone. However, now let's flash the next photo. And if you look, now they show you what it's showing is that, oh, the phone is the life. Let there be life. But what's really interesting is the image behind it. What do you make of that? That's a brain. That's a skull. That's a cutaway of the top of a head with the two ears, and there's like squiggle lines in the middle. That to me is them telling us that this is what these AirPods are going to be doing. These AirPods are changing the brainwave pattern, and that is going to be the new life force that is going to be emanating through these brains, whoever's consistently using these AirPods.
Hmm.
And then let there be life.
A sick
It's
pun.
yes. And the image, to me, I have no doubt that is just like the image that I have of the brain cutaway with the radiation beams going through it from both ends of what looks like two ears, right? Yeah. So let's go back to the yeah, there you go. So those are like two ears, and then you can see a squiggle line going through from one ear to the next. And then there's an outline, what looks like a brain. I know this photo is not very good because it's all in motion. Okay, so I had to take still shots, but if you look at this, the scene in motion, you'll be able to see that, oh yeah, it's a consistent image of what looks like a cutaway of a brain, and then two flaps that look like ears, and then a brain in the middle. Okay, it's got an outline of a brain in the middle, but it always has this weird squiggly line going across it. You want to let's look at the photo before that one. I don't know if you guys can see that. Can you blow that one up bigger?
Is that better?
Maybe if you can get rid of us. Yeah. So you see both those phones have that same image, and you see that really bright light running across. Well, these are all subliminal messages of things that,
I see a pyramid.
well, it's round. It's actually round. It's okay. Well, anyways,
No, on the
it's hard.
left. On the left side, I see a
I want them.
pyramid.
Oh, you do? Oh,
On the
okay.
left side,
Left side.
under the left hand.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, that's a reflection of the phone, but sure, I'm
Okay.
sure they meant for that pyramid to be there too. Okay. Well, anyways, that's it for my images, and I I think this is pretty much the breadth of my talk. I really wanted to focus on the AirPods because it's been a new phenomenon that I noticed that they really pushed this technology, specifically the AirPods, um, around the time of the 2020 era, because I knew that it was going to be a binary problem. So, and sure enough, it's this weird thing where everybody, young and old, I'm seeing walking around everywhere. They're just have these things in them, in their ears, even when they're not talking or even connected. It's just permanently in their ears. And what's so interesting is that the iPod version is always emitting, even when it's not being used. The moment you open up that capsule, if you have an RF meter, it starts to scream because it's awakened. So I really pray for mankind. I really do. And if we all can warn our loved ones, our friends, and whomever, strangers, about these things, please do so. It's going to be an epidemic of more than just cancers and brain issues, but behavioral anomalies, okay, because of all the things that I'm sharing with you. However, more than that, it means that those who are in the know, which is all of us, is that all the more reasons why we need to be in prayer and to arm ourselves in full knowledge and to guard our minds and our hearts so that we understand and know the wiles of the devil. Well, thank you, Daryl, for having me on again today. I know this.
Amen to that. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
Incredible presentation, Lena.
Yes, absolutely. That was a powerful, powerful that's only about, I'm replaying it about 2.5 hours after it went live. And we need to just wrap it up also and take it in, because I'm like just surrounded in Wi-Fi at this university all the time, every class, every building, all the time. And I get upset about that stuff too. It's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. You know, me and my friends, we're never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? We're trying to prove we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara.